Everybody, this is an important workshop on a most impossible subject, and I'm glad that we have a rather big crowd for that. We are dealing with the subject of preservation of the environment during and after armed conflict. As you know, there are many human activities which are harmful for the environment, but the deliberate destruction caused by war is really one of the most harmful activities for the lives of people, but also for the environment. We are going to discuss that on the basis of the work which has been done by the relevant specialist group within the Commission on Environmental Law. And in the beginning, I'm very pleased to give the floor to an old and always inspiring friend, Wolfgang Burhenne. He is responsible for many things inter alia for the fact that I got into environmental law at a time when you had to explain NENVIR and so on. Now people didn't even know how to spell it. At this time he was already in the forefront. He has always inspired us, and he has also invented to a certain extent IUCN's work on the subject, and we have been on workshops different places of the world for many years, but much remains to be done. I'm glad that you're still here to inspire us. Wolfgang, help.
I have the feeling, just not you, I had this always, that this topic is the most challenging task out of all those in our field. War and the environment is something for me who had been part in a war, who had been participating in the war. Something what is really something horrible for me. As someone associated with politics, I have always felt strongly that more should be done to better to protect the environment during times of armed conflict. But what I mentioned immediately in the first sentence, this is a very, very difficult task, very difficult. IUCN had a long history confronting issues of war and the environment. We had a resolution in the 19th General Assembly, with the first resolution in the first Congress, a resolution in the 5th Congress, resolution at the, this was called the the Protected Areas Congress in South Africa, in the 3rd Conservation Congress, and in the 4th Congress. But it is true that some progress had been made, but not enough. That we are all agreed. This is also the result from the. Nobody likes to hear something how we should conduct war. This is something good. For instance, I'm very happy that the Convention on Cluster Munition was coming into force since the last Congress in Barcelona. We had pushed for this. We have taken some initiatives. Now Nonetheless, I remain sadly surprised that the conservation organizations, especially in those states yet to ratify, have not done more to promote the treaty's relevance to the environment. We have, in nearly all the resolutions, tried to explain to the conservation people that cluster abolition is not only a case for humans, it's not only just a problem for the population, but it's also a problem for the use of the land. It's also a problem for the animals in the area. And this, I have seen myself an elephant with 3 legs, and that's really moved you. You're really touched when you see this, how this heavy animal, is moving on 3 legs. I have the impression that the conservation community, I could say generally, does not fully understand the implication of cluster munitions and landmines. When we brought the first resolution in Montreal, also our Kenyan friend Perez Olindo was then amending the resolution, especially in view of the mines. But I think in IUCN this message has not really gone through the organization. I think the conservation organizations could do much more to press the governments who are not, until now, not ready to ratify this treaty. Perhaps you could start an initiative with a letter to all members of IUCN in providing guidance for special campaigns in states who are still ready to use these horrible weapons. I think this is, IUCN could easily write to all the organizations so that the conservation organizations taking an initiative. I think, Michael, it's mainly the US, it's Great Britain and Israel, what I know, who have really opposed until now publicly that they will never ratify. Within IUCN, the overall implementation of previous resolution is moving very slowly. Let's be safe. I hope, for instance, and I think we cannot expect it, to see the required report from the Director General to this Congress, as called in Barcelona, regarding the progress of states endorsing a Martens Clause for the environment protection. I have not seen the report. This was a request. We adopted, I think, nearly unanimously in Barcelona. I know that the specialist group has been active to see where impact and progress could be made to improve the existing legal situation from the environmental point of view. I hope that the specialist group will follow the plan which they proposed some time ago. Surely, but also Michael already announced, you will have more information in detail after my introduction. I'm personally keen on one particular point. Most of the people know what it is. Short of being able to shield all protected areas from damage caused by armed conflict, I feel that it is important to continue discussing the concept of free hands. for especially important natural areas. When you know the concept, and you will see that the Security Council has then in each case to decide what not only the monuments, but what are the most important natural areas. This is based on the legal approach taken for the protection of specific cultural areas, in such cases decided by the UN Security Council. I have heard from Michael Voter that this discussion is progressing, and he has made contact with the International Law Commission. Perhaps Michael will give you further details on this. I wish you well in your difficult discussions, but I repeat, it's a very, very, very important endeavor within the field, also within the program of IUCN. We should give more emphasis on this point. Good. These are my remarks for starting your discussion.
Thank you. My name is Carl Brook. I'm co-chair of the specialist group on armed conflict and environment with Professor Botha, and I would like to, this session will address, as Professor Botha mentioned, both the environmental consequences of war and protecting the environment during armed conflict, and the role of natural resources in the environment after conflict. The first substantive session will build upon Wolfgang's remarks and address some of the issues that the specialist group and others in the field have identified as ways of strengthening international law to protect the environment during armed conflict.
Well, thank you very much, Carl, and thank you, Wolfgang, for your introduction, which has been, as always, inspiring and food for thought. And I'll come back to a number of issues you have mentioned in this hopefully short presentation of the first aspect of the work of the specialist group, namely the protection of the environment, the legal protection of the environment during armed conflict. Now, what is IUCN about? It's about preserving the environment, preserving the life-supporting systems of the world for future generations. And there are human activities, as I said, which are dangerous and harmful for the environment, and a compromise has been found as far as economic activities are concerned, and this is the notion of sustainable development and green economy. But there is no such thing as sustainable warfare or green warfare. And there's really a natural tension between the two. The development of both the law of armed conflict and the development of environmental law have been triggered over centuries and decades by disasters. The disasters of war and natural disasters, be they natural or man-made, like oil spills. And as it happened in the 1960s and early 1970s, both developments got to a crucial point. In the field of environmental law, you have an national development. I just quote the National Environmental Policy Act of the United States. And you have international developments culminating for the first time at the UN conference in Stockholm in '72. Now, at the same time, you had negotiations to add protocols to the Geneva Conventions for the Protection of War Victims based on the disasters of the conflicts which had taken place in the first 2 decades after the Second World War. And this led to a conference in Geneva, which took place 74 to 77. Now, in this international context, it was quite natural that the idea of protecting the environment, to the great surprise of the military and, I must say, the International Committee of Red Cross at the time, that this popped up in the negotiations. It was, had not been planned, but popped up in the negotiations. I was there. I can tell you the military got a little like this. What a queer idea to consider environmental consequences when you want to shoot your enemy. So this was the first unfriendly encounter between the specialists on those of war and the specialists on the environment. There are a few people like your obedient servant who is in both fields, and I can assure you sometimes this is difficult because I'm not green enough for some environmentalists and I'm too green for some literary people. The history of the negotiations, well, the first round of negotiations went clearly in favor of the military. The compromise was that there had to be something on the environment and the additional protocol to the Geneva Conventions, but it was formulated in a way which makes the whole thing unusable. The damage to the environment is forbidden if it is widespread, long-term, and severe. It's cumulative. And then you have a negotiating history which excludes practically the application of the prohibition to any conventional warfare. And then you have declarations of some of the, at least 3 of the 5 official nuclear powers that this whole thing is not applicable to nuclear warfare. So what rests? Nothing. That was the first round. But in a good boxing match, this is not the end of it, of course. And so we tried again. I'm not going into the detail of the history of the debates, just to tell you that it is not over. And that is why it is important that we work on the issue. Wolfgang has that, and he is right. So IUCN formed a specialist group. If you don't know where to go, you form a commission. So what did that commission do? We are lawyers, and the first approach of us lawyers is, what do we have as a matter of law? So we did some stock taking. We found out that the treaty law is inadequate. I mentioned that. There's practically no debate about that. This has to be modified, would I say, because you have to look at some other treaties. First of all, and I would like to stress what Wolfgang said, the treaties on the prohibition of landmines and the treaty on the prohibition of cluster ammunition have an environmental purpose. The major purpose is true human health, because these are the remnants of war. Cluster ammunitions, what makes them so bad is that the clusters, the bomblets, do not explode and that are sitting there on the ground like a mine. And this is terrible for the humans who happen to step on those, but it is also a huge, big danger for nature. And I didn't know this example of the three-legged elephant. I'm going to use that in the future to talk about it. And then also we have treaties on chemical and biological weapons for prohibiting those, which have also a very important environmental component. And thirdly, we have now a discussion on the continued application of treaties during armed conflict. And that is at least a partial help. There is now developing an agreement that environmental treaties, as a rule, are not suspended by armed conflict, continue to apply. This is, well, why is he not enthusiastic about it? I'll tell you. Because the substance, the content of these environmental treaties are not really geared to the situation of armed conflict. Or do you want to debate whether